Hello guys, and welcome back to another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 6 videos, and today we're going to be talking Episode 7 of the 6th season, otherwise titled Toldja. Okay, so I'm not going to go into so much of an introduction, the rating for the episode. Instead of talking it at the beginning of the video, I'm going to talk about it at the end of the video. I'm going to start with the very first thing that we see on this episode, which is basically the first person that we meet, and that's basically S.H.I.E.L.D, the character portrayed by Carolina Widra, a recurring guest star this season, and someone who I'm not really sure about yet. Going to be talking about that on my theory video this week. Now, we've got a few callbacks on this episode to prior episodes on this season, to previous episodes on previous seasons as well, and we've got this one Marvel movie side Easter egg. I'm gonna be talking about that when its turn comes, but for the time being, the very first callback on this episode happens to be the very same guy that hit on Daisy back on episode 3, the very same guy that bluffed Enoch back in episode 3 as well. That's the same guy who's following a pattern on this episode, hitting on S.H.I.E.L.D. But welcome back to Kitson City, where Jemma finally realizes she does not want to stay in space anymore. I mean, since the beginning of the season, all she wanted was to stay in space to find Fitz. Now that she's found him, "I want to go home" is the very first thing that she says on this episode. But apparently though, the teleportation ring light thing with a hole in the middle, that's known as the interplanetary conveyance disk. And obviously as well, there are only a few people who are allowed to use it, and Enoch is not one of them. This is his first time using that disc. I loved how everyone stopped when, they teleported into the casino, but just seconds later, they just didn't care. Loved how no one cared right there. And one guy ends up picking the disc and getting teleported, and that is basically all about them getting stranded on Kitson once again. That though is all about the opening scene of the episode. The very next scene is the scene that we got on the sneak peek this week. It's all about May getting Sarge and Snowflake into the lighthouse, one in a cell and the other to be interrogated by Mac. But before we leave the elevator though, Snowflake's long way down, that's a callback to Fitz asking Enoch on Season 5's Rewind, how far does this go down, talking about the very same elevator. But that though is the elevator part. Love how Sarge is so confident that he's gonna get out of this. I mean, he's saying goodbye to Snowflake, but it's not really goodbye, like I'm gonna see you again very soon as well. But the next thing though is May taking him into the Operations Command Center, and he's basically meeting everyone. Everyone is kind of shocked in the hallways on their way to the Command Center. As soon as they walk in, everyone from the team is shocked. I mean, all of them know that this guy looks exactly like Coulson, but knowing it is one thing, seeing it is something completely different. And so everyone isn't shocked. The person that's most shocked over there is pretty much Daisy. But while the stinger of last week's episode did tell us that Mac didn't tell Daisy about Sarge looking exactly like Coulson, it does get revealed on this week's episode that she did actually know. Yes, there was shock still, but she did know already. That's of course one other thing I'm going to be talking about on my theory video, because right now we're missing a hug out of the Season 6 trailer. You know, when this all-new Daisy with this all-new hairdo hugs Sarge or hugs Coulson. We're still to get that on a later episode, which means that this opens up a can of worms when it comes to theories. Now, the entire scene was supposed to be serious, was supposed to be dramatic, but Deke's only strong reaction to Sarge was when he feared that he's hurt Daisy's feelings. So yeah, in the middle of all the seriousness, there was a little bit of fun. I love the recap that Meg gives. 100 years old, Shrike's creator coming, Earth will be destroyed by either the creator or Sarge. That is what she meant when she used the words, possibly by Sarge. But another thing about the creator coming, Earth getting destroyed, possibly by Sarge, is it is pretty much a parallel to Tarian telling Talbot that Thanos is coming and will possibly be destroying Earth. That was either on episode 20 or episode 21 of Season 5. But on the same scene as well, we get to find out that it takes quite the while before Shrike actually dies, so you do not remove the knife right away. That was the mistake that they did with the Shrike inside Simcoe. That was the mistake that led to Keller's death. Okay, we get to find out that Jacko is out of the framework, he's in a cell, they've been trying to interrogate him, he's not been giving anything up, but they're hoping at this moment that he would, now that his leader is in custody. Of course, the moment I heard that, I was looking forward to him meeting Daisy, because, Daisy in the framework, him meeting Daisy, IRL, that would be quite funny. I mean, that is the same chick that I met in the framework that was all over me. What's up with that chick? But once again though, we switch to Fitz and Simmons. They're gambling at that table. That's already been presented to us prior to the airing of the premiere of Season 6. Back when we got the all-cast photo for this season. But yeah though, Jemma does not like the casino without the part that she was high on episode 3, but just when the exit was clear, Mr. Kitson wants to see you, and all of them kind of get arrested. But we are alternating between the two sides of things on this episode, so we jump back to S.H.I.E.L.D. We've got Yo-Yo going to Jacko's cell talking to him about his planet, or him talking to her to be more precise about his planet, smaller moons, bigger suns, family, big one. Jacko is the baker, from the episode title that was changed by the way to Collision Course Part 2, that was supposed to be episode 9. Every one of his family members is gone, except for him, thanks to Sarge. So he's very loyal, he's a believer, and he's a good guy at heart, it seems. So yeah, even though he's got questionable methods along with Sarge, he is sympathetic, and there's always a good chance that Jacko is a good guy, even though Sarge might not be. Now Sarge talks about the creator being a monster, possibly a god to humans. Sarge goes, "I've seen gods up close." All of this is kind of a lot of references to things that Coulson has said in the past. You've got Season 1, Episode 8, The Well. Coulson talks to Daisy about Thor being a god, and states that this is just tied to Norse mythology because that is really their origin. He identifies, back then, the belief in their godliness as a product of people in ancient times not comprehending the concept of aliens. So that's around those same lines, you might perceive the creator as a god, but he's not really, that's just your perception. But the entire statement as well, I've seen gods up close, and I think you're gonna get that opportunity too, but I don't think you're prepared for it. That's all about Coulson's statement on the premiere of the series. I've seen giants up close, and that privilege cost me nearly everything. He was talking then about Loki. Loki is an Asgardian considered to be a god in Norse mythology. This is basically all adding up towards the idea that this guy is repeating statements that we did hear Coulson say, that May did hear Coulson say as well. But finally though, one final reference or callback when it comes to Coulson speaking of meeting gods is Coulson's line to Malik on Season 3 Episode 17 of Met Gods, Gods Bleed. Now the next thing that was really funny about this episode was that entire scene with Deke trying to get Daisy to realize how awesome he is, trying to impress her while using all the wrong lines, Jordan inventing shoes, talking about himself in the third person. I was like, dude, not smooth. You've got Daisy telling him about finding Fitz. We know from episode 5 he did not even know about Fitz dying in the first place. Now Deke's angry at Mac for not telling him about Fitz's death, tells him it proves his multiverse theory because he's still around and his second Fitz exists in this timeline. So many thoughts here, so first and foremost, this is more of a Toldja moment, as in the title of the episode. It's a reference to what Deke told Fitz close to the end of Season 5. One way this could work without him disappearing is the multiverse theory. It is also proved that two Fitzes exist in this timeline that belong to this timeline, hence the explainable paradox or anomaly, whatever it is that you might want to call it. I'm not gonna get into technicalities. It's a reference to Deke telling Fitz just that close to the end of Season 5, hence the Toldja part. And finally, it proves that the article that some people referenced in the comments to last week's video was completely wrong and irrelevant, and has got nothing to do with what the show or the way the show wants to explain all of this. But the way though that Mac tries to flatter Deke over there, your Google-sized brain, that's basically a reference to him flattering Fitz back on Season 2 when they first met, when Fitz had his brain injury, calling him Turbo as an encouragement, like letting him know he could get back on his feet like he used to, think faster, get thoughts out faster, solve problems faster. But moving on though, May does suggest on this episode that Sarge be put in the same room with the Coulson hologram. We see that play out later. The moment she said it, I was pretty sure she had an ulterior motive. I mean, yeah, she wants to see the impact of that on none other than Sarge. Like, is he my Coulson? She's still thinking that. But that brings us to the moment that he is in that room with the Coulson hologram, and Mac's statement to him, "Must be strange looking at the real deal," a reference to the 12th episode of Season 5, The Real Deal, and a reference to the very end of the pilot where Coulson tells Mike Peterson, "But the good ones, the real deal, they're not heroes because of what they have." That's what Mac meant as well, using the phrase the real deal. He is the real deal, he is the real hero, you're just a knockoff. Now there's a lot of talk on this episode about false gods. I've been talking about the Balgat thing, gonna talk about it later, but more importantly, there was the Mac passing through the Coulson hologram, which was very reminiscent of Hive passing through it on the Season 3 finale. And remember, Hive was one of those false gods they discussed earlier on this episode. But moving back though through the space side of things, it's Anthony Michael Hall, baby, and he does one hell of a portrayal of this Mr. Kitson. Blades made from Veruvian steel, the densest metal in the galaxy, that along with Daisy referring to Jacko later on as turning into a dragon. These two put together felt like they're two sides to one and the same reference, that being Game of Thrones, Valyrian steel, and dragons. But we already knew the next part. S.H.I.E.L.D to the rescue threatens Mr. Kitson, rescues Fitz and Simmons, buys them from Mr. Kitson. She introduces herself to Fitz, Simmons, and Enoch. She needs their knowledge. She's looking for valuable artifacts stolen from her. They are on Earth. Next week's episode trailer does tell us what those are, so I'm gonna be talking about those on my trailer breakdown. And next up is Daisy talking about all the hands that went up in voting for Meg becoming the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's basically a reference to the season 5 finale. All of that kind of happened on board of the Zephyr. Now Daisy versus Jacko. Jacko goes down. Jacko was Sarge's ticket out of the lighthouse. Now even though Sarge lost that ticket, S.H.I.E.L.D. does give him another one. So Deke cracks the code, figures out what's going on. Two Shrikes moving towards each other. We've got Yo-Yo on her way to get one, May on her way to get the other, both of them to rendezvous on board of the Zephyr. And so far so good, they do succeed, but not without complications that do arise later on. Now the moment that Sarge tells Mac in so much sarcasm that he has outsmarted him, followed by Yo-Yo putting the two Shrikes in the same containment unit, I was like, hell no. Deke just told you, these two are heading towards one another. That means that you just brought them right where they wanted to be. But that's when we get our second Toldja moment, you know, them bringing Sarge in the command center. Sarge, in a manner of speaking, is going to be in charge, dictating his list of demands close to the end, you know, his team and his truck. In return, he gives them a way that sorts out everything with the team on board of the Zephyr, like they're saved. You know, at this point you release them off the jet and you're basically screwing everyone else because they're just gonna expand on what they're doing. But instead of doing that, cold is most definitely another way to kill them. But by the end of the episode though, everyone's looking up to Sarge and they're looking up to him for help, for command. And that's pretty much about the third Toldja moment overall in the episode and the second one for Sarge. He even says it to Mac at that moment, told you. And that's pretty much right before he raises his hands to get uncuffed. But moving on to the stinger of the episode, Fitz and Simmons take back the controller's ship, more like Fitz taking it back because it was originally taken from him. We got a jump drive and Fitz needs to install it. The jump drive always feels like a reference to Guardians of the Galaxy, but we've also seen our fair share of them on AOS. We've got them with General Hale, the ones that she used to go up there and meet up with the Confederacy. We've got the one on the Confederacy ship, and we've got the one that the Zephyr was using early on this season. Now next up we've got Enoch parting with the team. Too bad, really wanted him to stay for the rest of this season, but the guy believes his mission was saving Earth, sending Fitz and Simmons back home, and he believes that mission was complete. His new mission now is to find a new home for the Chronicoms to replace the wrecked Chronica 2. I definitely loved how emotional that moment turned out to be for both Fitz and Enoch, loved how they fleshed out the character of Enoch on so many episodes, and finally, there's the pager that he hands Fitz. Don't be afraid to call, but use it only as needed. Very Captain Marvel handing Nick Fury the pager, use it only in emergencies. Last but not least though, and I almost missed this one, telling Fitz he's not gonna miss him very much, and then telling him he's bluffing. That's an obvious reference to him being very bad at bluffing on the third episode of the season. Like, hey, I'm learning, I'm becoming just like you humans, learning stuff about you, and knowing how to act like you. But yeah though, this stinger was a great scene, really loved it. The episode was pretty great as well. Not gonna say it's better than last week's episode because I preferred last week's episode over anything this season, including this one, but this one was pretty close. This one is like my second favorite at this moment on this season. So on an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. scale of 10, I'm gonna give this episode a 9 out of 10. It's totally worth it, it's one of the best this season, and I found this episode to be shaking things up, kinda taking the season in this new direction, not different direction, but like new direction. Like things are falling more into place than they were before this episode. So yeah, that being said, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Let me know if you've got any theories as to how things are gonna play on the upcoming few episodes. Do you still think Sarge is a good guy? Because I'm kinda hesitant there. I think he is good in a certain sense. He's trying to stop the Shrikes, but he's not absolutely good. Like there's no absolute with the Sarge person. Let me know as well what you think of the new character of S.H.I.E.L.D, how you think her character is going to play out over the upcoming episodes, what you think her motives are, and let me know if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning into this one, and have a great day.